What if you were swallowed by a whale? Whales are the world's largest animals today, and some species are the largest animals to have ever lived on Earth. Roaming the world's oceans, these giants of the deep go about their business without a care for the affairs of terrestrial creatures like humans. However, folktales, legends, religious stories, and even claims around the world have featured instances of human beings being swallowed whole by whales. Many of these stories usually end with the swallowed person living to tell the tale. Today's video is an in-depth look at the possibility and consequences of such an occurrence. Can these massive marine mammals really swallow people? And what would become of you if you were to be swallowed by a whale? Let's talk about it. Whale is the generic word for fully aquatic mammals that give birth to live young. Taxonomists have placed them in the infraorder of Cetacea, which is characterized by long torpedo-esque bodies, front flippers, and horizontally fluked tails. Interestingly, cetaceans share a common ancestor with modern-day hippopotamuses. The term whale originates from the Proto-Germanic word walis, which roughly translates to large sea fish. Of course, we now know that whales are in fact not fish at all. Given the scattered taxonomy, it's easier to use whale for any cetacean species. However, while these animals share some basic characteristics, this grouping is as diverse as any in the animal kingdom. For starters, we have the size range. The smallest cetacean is the vaquita, which grows to be about 5 feet with a maximum weight of about 150 pounds. On the extreme end, we have the blue whale, whose 100-foot length and 380,000-pound body weight make it the largest animal ever. Another major difference is dentition. There are 2 parvorters based on this. The first parvorter is baleen whales, also known as mysticeti. Baleen, or a baleen plate, is a structure that lines the upper jaws of mysticeti animals in the place of the kind of teeth we're used to. It consists of thousands of keratin fibers that run vertically like a brush. Unlike teeth, which are used for gripping, tearing, and chewing food, baleen plates act as a filter that separates water from food. A baleen whale scoops up water filled with food like plankton or schooling fish, then closes its mouth while pushing water out through the baleen with its tongue. However, the baleen plate traps food in the whale's mouth before swallowing. Different baleen species have evolved to eat specific types of food. Right whales have especially fine baleen fibers that can filter water from tiny crustaceans like copepods. Blue whales are fairly picky eaters. These behemoths mostly feed on krill, consuming up to 8,000 pounds of the stuff daily during the height of the feeding season. Humpback whales and sei whales have more diverse palates, going after krill, amphipods, small squids, and small schooling fish like sardines. The gray whale is the only baleen whale that can also feed benthically. This means it can swim to the ocean floor, scoop up sea sediment, and filter it out to trap the tasty amphipods and ghost shrimp that dwell there. Most of the largest whales are baleen feeders. Even the endangered pygmy right whale, the smallest of the baleen whales, can grow to 21 feet and nearly 8,000 pounds. Another interesting fact about the baleen whales is that they have 2 blowholes on the top of their heads. The other parvorter is the toothed whales, aka Odontocetes. Like their baleen relatives, toothed whales vary in appearance, size, diet, and other behavioral traits. The sperm whale is the biggest toothed whale and the biggest toothed carnivore in the world. Males grow to an average length of 52 feet and an average weight of 100,000 pounds. Females are nearly half the size. Sperm whales are notorious deep divers, going as far as 10,000 feet below the surface in search of their favorite food, giant squid. Orcas, or killer whales, are smaller than sperm whales but are much more prolific hunters. Their numbers, coordination, varied palate, and intelligence have seen them regarded as the ocean's top predators. Orcas live in matriarchal pods of up to 40 or more members, preying on fish, sharks, seals, and other whales. Dolphins are the most common toothed whales. Noted for their intelligence, dolphins generally have positive relations with humans and have been the subject of countless eye-opening studies. Toothed whales are more active predators than baleen whales and have evolved effective tools for this. Chief among these is a biological sonar tracking system that relies on ultrasonic clicks. The whales make these clicks in a certain direction. If the click hits an object, they bounce back to the whale, which has sensitive receiver tissues in their jaws that relay the vibrations to the brain. The whale can then decipher what the object is. This sonar system is so advanced that toothed whales can navigate and find food in pitch-black conditions. Can whales swallow humans? Throughout the ages, there have been numerous stories of people being swallowed by whales. In Western culture, the most famous of these is the biblical story of Jonah. According to the book of Jonah in the Bible, God had become angered by the wickedness of the people living in the city of Nineveh, which is now called Mosul in Iraq. God called upon Jonah to serve as a prophet and warn the citizens of Nineveh of the punishment that would come for them if they didn't repent. Out of rebellion, Jonah disobeyed God and tried to flee by sailing to another city. In response, God sent a terrible storm that threatened to sink Jonah's vessel. The men on board with Jonah then decided to draw lots to determine the man responsible for bringing such rotten luck. Jonah drew the short straw and was cast in the sea, where a large fish swallowed him whole. Jonah would stay in the creature's belly for 3 days before it spat him out, following his prayers begging God for forgiveness. The Islamic Quran also has a similar story of Yunus, the Arabic translation of Jonah. According to the Islamic texts, Yunus is referred to as the one of the fish. Biblical and Islamist scholars largely interpret these stories as non-historical lessons rather than solid historical fact. However, many believers of Judeo-Christian and Islamic faiths take the stories as literal. Another point of contention is whether large fish is literal or a result of loose translation over time. The story of Jonah has also been connected to various mythologies around the world. Greek mythology hero Hercules, for example, is said to have been swallowed whole by an unspecified sea monster for 3 days. However, instead of being spat out, Hercules is said to have hacked and slashed his way out of the beast's guts. Modern fiction has also seen humans swallowing whales used as a major plot point. The 1940 Disney fairy tale film Pinocchio featured a scene where Pinocchio and his father Geppetto are trapped inside the belly of a sperm whale named Monstro. To escape the predicament, Pinocchio starts a fire, and the smoke causes the whale to sneeze the duo out. It's important to note that the original novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi, depicts this scene under the chapter name The Terrible Dogfish. The change to a sperm whale was a rework by Disney. More recently, American author Daniel Kraus released the scientifically accurate fiction novel Whale Fall. The book is about a diver locked in a race against a rapidly emptying oxygen tank after getting swallowed whole by a large sperm whale. With that said, there is no officially documented record of a whale ever swallowing a human being, whole or otherwise. However, there have been claims. One notable claim surrounds James Bartley, who was allegedly whaling off the Falkland Islands. Upon spotting a large sperm whale, Bartley hit the animal with a harpoon, but this only served to anger the beast. The whale breached the surface and smashed Bartley's boat, knocking him overboard. According to the story, the whale's furious thrashing saw the then 21-year-old swept up into its mouth. More than 12 hours later, fellow whalers managed to kill the whale, which was still tethered to the remainders of Bartley's boat, and cut open its guts. Inside, the men found Bartley covered and partially blinded by digestive acids, but alive. The Bartley story is hotly debated today, as there are a few inconsistencies, never mind the lack of conclusive evidence. There have also been stories of people who have been scooped into the mouths of whales without being truly swallowed. These reports often revolve around baleen whales, which open their massive mouths to take in large volumes of water when feeding. A lobster diver named Michael Packard was once swept into the mouth of a humpback whale near Cape Cod in 2021. He was in there for nearly a minute before the surprised whale reopened its mouth, allowing him to escape. Luckily for divers, baleen whales have very tiny esophagi. Even the mighty blue whale has an esophagus that is barely bigger than a basketball. Human beings simply would not fit. Unfortunately, there is still the risk of drowning in a large baleen whale's mouth before it recognizes you're in there. The whale could also spit you out at a depth and pressure that may be too much for you or your dive gear to handle. The one whale that could swallow a person whole is the sperm whale, as its esophagus is fairly wide. However, sperm whales are not interested in mammals, as they primarily target cephalopods and some species of small fish. Other toothed whales, like orcas, have the tools to maul and rip a human to edible chunks, but there is no documented record of orcas even killing humans. There have been a handful of non-fatal attacks in the past century, though, but no one has been swallowed. What happens if a whale swallows a person? If a creature like a sperm whale were to willingly or accidentally swallow a person, there is no chance Pinocchio would come to save the day. Depending on whether the person had an oxygen tank, he or she would likely have seconds or minutes to live. A 200-bar oxygen tank can last up for an hour at depths of 60 feet, but that depends on the individual's rate and volume of breathing. It's safe to assume that being swallowed by a whale is more than stressful enough to trigger hyperventilation, which would use up oxygen faster. Additionally, you'd need to be lucky enough to have been swallowed as soon as you dived into the ocean for you to have close to an hour of oxygen. That said, diving gear may inadvertently save your life in a rather unexpected way. Sperm whales, in particular, are known to regurgitate things they cannot digest. Squid beaks and metallic oxygen tanks are a few examples of such items. However, you'd better hope the whale regurgitates you in time and at a manageable depth.